My name's Curt Wright, president of CTS, and I want to thank you for choosing CTS as your place of employment. Obviously, this is a little bit different for us in that we've usually in the past had a live full-day orientation. I come in and talk to people personally and sort of go through this thing, but obviously we're a little bit different in what we're doing now and trying to streamline this process and make our drivers and our employees more successful when they come on to CTS. So hopefully this works out for you. You find this to be informative. Again, I'm not going to be giving you any information here that's mind-boggling or anything like that, or something you have to remember to do your day-to-day job. What I do want to do is sort of give you the history, brief history of the company, my history and my background, so that you understand what really drives CTS and what is really pushing us every day to do what we do. And hopefully when I'm done, you're able to take a look at all the things we do and say, hey, that's different than any other place I've worked at. And again, I feel confident that you'll feel that way. We are trying to build a first-class trucking operation here, and I'm one of those guys that don't ever rest on our laurels, right? And I don't want our people to do that either. So even though we do a lot today that a lot of companies don't do, we got room to improve. We got room to be better, and that's both for my drivers and for my employees in the office here, and we strive for that every day. So again, thank you for choosing CTS, and we'll just hop right into it. So briefly, my history, right? I think it's important that you understand what my background is. I'll be the first to tell you I've never driven a truck. Can't say I've ever done what you've done. But what I can tell you I have done is I've grown up around trucking my whole life. My dad is a Vietnam War vet, was in the 173rd Airborne. I was 5, my brother was 3, and my sister was 6 months when my real mom passed away. And at the time, he was a drill instructor in the Army. So obviously, weird hours, all the things that go along with being a drill instructor in the Army after the Vietnam War. So he's left with a 5, a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old. My mom passes away from complications of the birth of my youngest sister. And so he picks up the kids, moves from Fort Jackson, South Carolina, moves back to his hometown in central Pennsylvania, marries his high school sweetheart, and dumps 3 kids on her and becomes a truck driver. So that's sort of how we get into my family being in the business. If you're familiar, if you're an over-the-road driver, if you're familiar with Carlisle, Pennsylvania, it's one of the biggest trucking hubs in the nation. It is the New Jersey, New York, New England metro hub. So basically what happens is they say, most trucking companies say, hey, every driver who lives in Wisconsin, lives in Iowa, lives in Minnesota, lives in Georgia, they don't want to go to the city. They don't want to go to New Jersey. They don't want to go to Boston. So let's bring it all to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. They can drop it there. We'll give them freight going outbound from there, and we'll have our guys that live up in this region do all that. So that's where I grew up at from the age 11 on. I'm originally born in Leesville, Louisiana. So obviously Green Bay is not my hometown. I've been living here for 4.5 years. But so that's basically the story. Back then when you drove, my dad, when he first got started in trucking, it was 5 weeks out, 3 days home. So obviously the industry's grown quite a bit, become much more regionalized, that type of thing. So now I guess it's commonplace to say you're home every week, or, out for 2 weeks, home for 3 days, that type of scenario. So if you can imagine, as a kid growing up, I have this new lady in my life that's my mom now. My dad's gone for 5 weeks at a time. So back then, I thought eating at a truck stop and unloading trailers was cool. And if you think about it from a kid's standpoint, the reason I thought that was because that meant I was spending time with my dad. So I'd go out on the road when I was younger for 5 weeks at a time with Dad during the summer, and then my brother and sister were staying at home. So I love that, right? What I tell everyone is, luckily for you guys, I've matured a lot since then and realized that eating at truck stops and unloading trailers isn't much fun unless there was a reason behind it back then. So we don't do any of that. We don't do any driver unload. We don't do any driver assist when it comes to pallet jacking or anything. We want to make life easy. So we are a company that operates on a 7.2 to 1 trailer to tractor ratio. The industry average is a 3 to 1. So to put that into perspective for you, most trucking companies my size, 150 trucks, would have 450 trailers. We have just slightly over 1,000. We have 1,020 trailers. And the reason we do that is we want to do as much drop and hook with our drivers as we can. Keep the wheels turning. You guys are happier. You're getting home quicker. From my standpoint, it's a better way of doing business as well. So not often in this industry can we say it's a win-win scenario, but whenever we can do a lot of drop and hook, it's a win-win scenario for you and for us. And if you ask any of the old timers that have been here for the 4.5 years I've been here, they've seen the amount of drop and hook business we do as a company significantly increase. And it's real simple. The happier you are, the easier it is for my operations folks on the floor to operate every day to day. So again, we strive for that. So back to the family history. So Carlisle, Pennsylvania is where I grew up, just slightly outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Harrisburg is the state capital. So the biggest employer in central Pennsylvania is the state government. The second biggest employer would be transportation. So I had a dad that drove. I had uncles that drove. I had uncles who owned trucks, 3, 4 trucks. I had uncles who were mechanics. I had aunts who were secretaries there. I had one of my uncles drove a Mack Tools truck to all the different trucking companies, and he was the one that really got me interested in collecting the die-cast miniature trucks. So I grew up as a kid, and in his basement he had lit-up cabinets and displayed. He had over 700 of them. So today I have roughly 200 and some, except my wife doesn't allow me to have that man cave in the basement where I set all that stuff up. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is it was ingrained in our family. Everyone in our family, aunts, uncles, cousins, were working in the trucking business, and it was just something that we just sort of gravitated to. So I tell you that history because I think it's important to understand that, did I go to college? Yeah. Did I do all that? But I'm not some snot-nosed kid in college that came out with a finance degree who knows nothing about trucking. Again, you'll find most of the times a lot of what we've designed in this company is very driver friendly. Well, guess what? My dad was a driver. My uncles were drivers. What do you think I'm probably going to do is try to create an environment that's unique and different and driver friendly. Does that mean your interaction with us will be perfect every single time? Does it mean that every day is fun working at CTS? Absolutely not. If I ever figure out how to make trucking fun, I'll write a book and probably be able to retire from this. But the point of the matter is we firmly believe that what we do every day is in the best interest of the driver. If not, we learn our lesson from that one and make sure the next time we have that same interaction or that same scenario that we're operating differently to make it a good interaction for the driver. So, it's in my family. I haven't been away from family for 3 weeks at a time in a truck, but at the end of the day, what I tell people is I don't have to have done that to have a value or a respect for what you do. So that's my family history and youth history. So hopefully, as we explain what's going on here, this will give you more of a background as to, okay, now I get why they're doing this, why they're doing that. Okay. Companies I've worked for, I'm going to go through them quickly. What you will notice about each company is they're in a different geographic area of the country. And there was a reason for that, because as I bounced from company to company, I wanted to obviously go to a good company in my mind at the time, and also learn something, right? So it did no good to take 5 different jobs in Atlanta because they're all doing the same thing. So quickly, if you're an over-the-road driver, I really cut my teeth on working for a company out of Jacksonville, Florida called Arnold Transportation. I worked for them for 5 years. I worked for them when they were LeBarnold up in the Northeast, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. They bought a trucking company in Jacksonville called Silver Eagle. Then they bought a trucking company in Oklahoma called H.R. Hill. They bought a trucking company in Dallas called Dalworth. And they bought another one in Georgia called T.W. Owens. We operated separately for many years. And then in 98, we merged all the companies under one umbrella called Arnold Transportation. I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and we were similar to the Civil War. We had the North and the South. I was responsible for the North operations. My counterpart, the South, was working there. And was a gentleman from U.S. Express had come there, and while U.S. Express had not bought us, you could sort of see the writing on the wall, and you could that they were going to, and you could also he was changing the whole dynamics of how we operated, and we were getting away from who we were really good at, which was good customer relations, good driver relations, and regional business. And U.S. Express tried to impart their model on us, and it failed miserably. So, obviously I left there. I was asked by a gentleman who used to work with me, who had gone with another company, if I'd be interested in running the East Coast operations for a company out of Seattle, Washington. Newly married, didn't care much for Jacksonville, didn't care the direction of the company. And Interstate had 1,300 trucks at the time. Arnold had 1,500. Arnold was publicly traded, which was another challenge in and of itself because they got shareholders to report to, so it's not always doing necessarily what I felt was the right thing for the business. So I moved out to Seattle. My wife and I had taken our honeymoon out west, so it was a great opportunity geographically. I loved it. We lived there for 6 years. My 2 girls were born there. Great company. When I left, they were 2,600 trucks, all through organic growth. Their driver turnover was great. They had 700 teams. It gave me a knowledge of West Coast, gave me a knowledge of the expedited business, gave me knowledge of the rail industry and how it interacts with trucking. Opened up their Southeast operation down in Nashville, Tennessee, and then a year later was contacted by Rail Transport out of Marshfield, asked me if I'd come to work for them. So took that opportunity to go to Rail Transport, Midwest regional experience, help them with start up their intermodal program, trailer on flat car is what we call it, where our drivers would pick up a load on a rail trailer and then put it on a flat car. Instead of being like containers that you stack, it'd be a flat car on a trailer. And then that load may go to New Jersey. The railroad delivers it, puts my trailer back on, sends it back to me. So it ends up being real driver-friendly freight and something that I could see us expanding to eventually for CTS down the road. Much different environment. If you've ever gone to container yards, those are miserable. Would never do that. But when you take trailer on flat car and put it on these expedited train yards, it's a much different environment. So anyhow, I worked for Rail Transport for, again, a very good company, conservative company. Interstate was a very good company. I loved what they did for drivers, had very low turnover, especially for a company that had 700 teams and ran all over the country. I think their turnover was in the 48, 49% range. So they did a lot of great things for drivers. Where they were sorely hurt was they overspent. They lived beyond their means, for a better way of saying it, and really had lost their vision of what the marketplace was from a pricing standpoint, and just really didn't manage lane flows, manage volume, stuff like that, and really ended up being the undoing of the company. Eventually, they went through the recession. Ended up downsizing, and I think today they're running about. They went from 2,600 trucks back down to like 1,200. So back to rail. Left rail. Went to work for Celadon down in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I would tell you that was probably the worst of all my stops. But again, you learn something from every place you go, and that gave me Mexico and Canadian background, what's involved with that. Not that I'd see us doing anything in Mexico long term, but I could see us opening up an operation where we're able to service Canada, that type of thing. So I had one more move in me before my oldest got to high school. So I said to my wife, who's an Italian from Queens, New York, and I said, of all the places we lived, which one did you like the most? And she said, Wisconsin. So you wonder if things happen for a reason. It wasn't maybe a month after that I got contacted out of the blue from a private equity firm who had purchased CTS. And that was 2012. And wanted to know if I'd be interested in moving to Wisconsin. And their comment was, we just can't seem to find anyone that would like to live in Green Bay. So it uniquely worked out. I was a big fan of Wisconsin here. Love the outdoors, love hunting, fishing. And most of all, I think the easiest thing to say is I love the people, right? The Midwest work ethic and just a good environment to raise kids. So came up here. So by far the smallest company I've ever worked for, 150 trucks. Came up here, had some issues, right? The equipment was all very old. And no fault of the owner, but getting through the recession, 2008 to 2012, for all intents and purposes, he bought used equipment or didn't buy much equipment at all. And so everything was very old. Maintenance issues, shop issues with the operations floor, because we had 10 open trucks, I think it was, or maybe 12 open trucks when I came here, which made no sense to me. I'm like, if you're home every day, what's the problem? Well, the problem was, and again, I go back, this is not anything to, disparaging about the previous owner, but it was a customer first mentality. Hey, if the customer wants this, we're going to do it. And if the driver has to stay out overnight or has to do something, that's what we're going to do. Our philosophy here is driver first mentality. Take care of your employees, they'll take care of the customers. So it's two different philosophies. A lot of other trucking companies have the customer first philosophy. I think my challenge is to find those customers that value what we offer them from a professionalism standpoint, from a service standpoint. And if I can't find those type of customers that will value you as an employee or value you as a representative of CTS, and don't value your time and leave you sitting at docks, my job then is to find a new customer, because that's how they're taking time from your family away from you. And at the end of the day, I'm going to guess that everyone I'm talking to over time, the reason you came to work for CTS is to be home with your family more. And that's what our intent is. That's what we've been able to do over the years I've been here, been able to, and we track this data to know it, but we know we are getting people home with shorter work days, less time getting stuck out where we have to get you a hotel room because we tolerate what customers are doing. We're close enough here. Hey, we'll park the trailer, come back and redeliver it when you're ready to take us, and we'll charge you for it then. So your communication to us is the key to make sure that you get back to your family. And really, it was changing that mentality out on the ops floor as well, that, hey, driver first type of deal. We didn't have that mentality. I think today we have 2 of the original 11 or 12 people that were here. 2 of them are left. It was just tough for people to change because 97% of the trucking companies out there are, hey, sorry, that's what the customer is doing. We're going to have to put up with it. It doesn't work that way here for us. And it's getting people to change. And if they can't change, working with them to change. And if at the end of the day, if they can't physically change or mentally change their outlook on that, then we had to bring new people in. And that's what we've done. And I will tell you, I feel the best about our operations staff today than I felt in the 4.5 years I've been here. They're doing a great job. Obviously, you can't see where I'm pointing, but the president of the previous ownership used to stay down at the far end of the building, away from the operations floor. I, to this day, keep my office right by the driver's window here and stay out where I have the pulse on what's going on with the company in regards to how do we talk to drivers, how do we talk to customers, how do drivers talk to us. I want to be a part of that because those are immediate learning opportunities if people are doing the wrong thing, and that goes for you, the driver, that goes for my office people. What I tell people is we're going to treat you with respect. We expect you to treat us with the same. You want to be treated like a professional, you have to act like one as well. So we're not in the environment where we like to argue with drivers and have them argue back and forth. We all got a job to do. The quicker I can do that job, the quicker I get you home and we come back and do it again the next day. Again, keep that in mind because we will challenge you on that. The thing that I tell people is, I do a lot here, both from a compensation standpoint, benefit standpoint, and some of the other little perks we do. I'm going to demand the best drivers here. It's part of our payment plan, pay for performance. I don't care if you've worked for me for 6 months or worked for me for 16 years. The person that does the best job is going to make the most money that quarter. And that's just a simple fact of the matter. Those who contribute to my success are going to benefit the most from it. So that's why, we don't pay for the amount of years you worked for me. We pay based on your performance. So everyone has this base pay, the same whether you've been here 16 years or 6 months. You have this base pay, and what you make next quarter will depend on how well you perform the quarter previous. So, that's pre-trips, post-trips, showing up to work on time, not missing work. And, at the end of the day, if you can't perform in that environment, then we're not going to be like the other 90% of the companies where we tolerate that. We're going to go ahead and part ways and look to bring someone else in. And at the end of the day, if I have to downsize the fleet because I can't find those type of people, that's what I will do rather than keep drivers on board who don't have that same outlook towards professionalism and doing the job right, because I got a ton of drivers who do have that outlook, and I am not going to have my good drivers today that I have be constantly paying the price because some other driver doesn't want to do what the company does. So understand that's where we're at. I think it's important that I'm honest with you and that you understand that, this isn't as easy a job as a lot of people would think. It isn't as easy as, hey, I pick up a load in New Jersey and go to California, 2,700, 2,800 mile trip, and I got 6 days to do it. You're going to be hustling here. You're in and out of the truck. You're averaging almost 3 loads a day. Our fleet does. And obviously we want you to do it safe, but you're not going to be able to stop at a truck stop and hang out. And well, I guess you could, but you're going to lose time with your family. You're going to lose time with your significant others. And, that's all stuff that at the end of the day, that's really what drives our business. Again, a lot of stuff we do, there'll be windows you can do that if you wanted to. I don't know any drivers that want to if they're working here at CTS, but there's other times if you do that while you're under a load with us, you're not going to be successful. So it's come in here, we're going to be late to the customer. It's come in here, get your load. Boom, I've used the restroom already. I've done all that. I'm picking up the load at Green Bay shipping container, and boom, I'm gone. And I'm delivering to Chicago, North Chicago, 3.5 hours later. So that's how we operate. That's what we do. And I guess I would tell you as a new driver too, it's going to be challenging, right? There's going to be that adjustment period, a month or so here. It's not going to be, oh, wow, I'm home every night now. It's got to be easy, right? It's still going to have its challenges. It's still not going to be as smooth as you like. You have that learning process. But what I tell people, what I love about our company is at the end of the day, if you have a bad day, you get to go home and talk to your significant other or someone else about your day instead of sleeping in a 48-inch or 52-inch box and being away from family for 2 weeks at a time and just thinking about it all night because you have nowhere else to go with it. So, or you get to come back to the window and complain at us, right? And so certainly we understand the environment. I value the work that you do and understand that we're working hard every day to make sure that you're back with your family, and that's what really drives us. So different jobs and why. When I came here, again, 10 to 12 open trucks. Two of the three major issues that the drivers had at the time was our shop personnel and the performance of their work. Second was length of their days. Third was weekend work. So again, in my environment, the weekend work was really a non-issue. They had to work 1 day on a weekend every third weekend, but at the end of the day, that was a problem for them. I had to fix it. So here's how we address all those issues. Currently today with our shop, the leadership of the shop that was here at that time is no longer here. We brought in Master Fleet. Master Fleet heads up our shop from a management standpoint. Jerry, who's with the shop, is a Master Fleet employee, teaches best practices. Everyone else out in that shop is a CTS employee. So we have addressed the shop issue, and I think you find with a lot of our employees that the shop is a much better environment today than it was 4.5 years ago. Different jobs and why. Length of day issues. What we have done to address the length of day issues, and I don't know what job you're applying for here, but we have the slip seat operations, which are 12-hour shifts. So there may be someone working 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the day shift, and then someone comes in at 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. on the night shift, and they share a truck. We currently today have 18 trucks that run in that environment. So we have drivers starting anywhere from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. at night, all through those hours there, starting at different hours. So what we're able to essentially do in the morning is take this pile of freight, move it to the side, whether it's appointed for at night or it's a 24-hour drop the hook, and say, okay, here's what all the night guys are going to do based on the group that's working that night. Now we've shortened that pile for the day guys and said, hey, here's what you're going to do. And to sort of preface it and put it back to what it used to be like, we had nothing but day guys when I first got here. So this pile of freight had to be delivered before you went home. So it wasn't uncommon for a guy to go down to the north side of Chicago, deliver, get a backhaul, come back, and maybe have 2 hours left. And then we'd say, hey, go take this load up to Lena and then come back. Well, at the end of the day, it seemed like we were always striving, when I first got here, the people were always striving to get that 14 hours out of every guy every day. My philosophy is, you know what, if you go to North Chicago and back and I get you a backhaul, that should be enough for me as a company that day. That should be enough for you. And hey, let's be done with it and move on. And so that's really why we created the slip seat, is so that you wouldn't have to come back and fill out 14 hours. My philosophy, again, is a lot of it is you don't have to necessarily work harder. Let's work smarter, right? So a lot of drivers would tell you, you know, and some of the older guys have been around for a while, I couldn't get them to come to the slip seat program because in their mind, mentally, it was like, I have to work 14 hours a day. There's no way I can make more working 12 than I can working 14. And that's where I go back to where we've changed the makeup of the business, changed the customer base and what we do, and more drop and hook. And you absolutely can make more working 12 hours than you can 14. And again, the reason I strive for that, again, 14 hours a day, 5 days a week is 70 hours. I'm not aware of too many jobs in our country that require, legally say that someone can work 70 hours a week and make the equivalent, in my mind, of one salary. You know, so you're working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs for the equivalent of 1 full-time salary. There's not a lot of people out there. I asked my office staff, you know, most of them work 7 to 5 or some, you know, 10-hour thing like that. I asked them how many of them would love to sit in my lobby in the morning for 2 hours and not get compensated, and how many of them would love to sit in the lobby again at the end of their shift, 2 hours, and not get compensated. I said, that's 2 hours free detention on the front end, 2 hours free detention on the back end. Now you have a 14-hour day. How many of you would work for me in an office environment if that was the case? And I've never seen anyone raise their hand. It's no different than how we approach our drivers, right? If it's not good enough for an office employee, then why should it be good enough for our drivers? Are you going to work 14-hour days here? Yes. Are we striving to try and get less and less of that? Absolutely, because I think that that's the future of our company, and the future of drivers want that. So, again, part of that is we had 0 slip seaters a while ago. We have 18 trucks that do it. There's 36 drivers today that are part of that environment that are working a 12-hour shift. Some days they may get done in 10 and a half, 11. Some days it may be 12 and a half or 13, but we're driving towards that and seeing a lot better impact of that, and it gives you some reliability on when you're going to be home with your family. The other thing we have is the 4x4 that addresses the weekend work. 2 guys share a truck. I work Monday through Thursday this week. My partner would work Friday through Monday, and then next week I'd start Tuesday through Friday. Then he would work Saturday through Tuesday. So you can see it rotates and gives us our weekend coverage. That's not for everyone, that 4x4. Obviously, you're only working 4 days or half the year versus 252 out of 365 days. So I would tell you, for certain people who don't want huge paychecks, they got benefits through their wife's plan, or their wife may have, or a husband for that matter, may have a great job and they just want income. Or for many of these folks, they have a place up north, and what they'll do is they'll do the 4x4 schedule, and during the winter, they'll work the extra days when they're off. And then when the summer gets here, they're like, hey, I'm sticking to my 4x4 schedule because I want to go for 4 days up to the cabin every week. Or they like it because they can take their kids to the dentist and whatever without burning vacation days. So, but anyhow, that does address our weekend issues too. We have 10 trucks that do that. And that is so basically on the weekends, we're covering anywhere from 35 to 50 loads every weekend outbound from the Valley and Green Bay. So if you think about it from this standpoint, if you got 10 trucks running loads on Saturday, 10 trucks running loads on Sunday, at a minimum, they're covering for you about 20 loads, anywhere between 20 and 30 loads, because a lot of times they may do a Neenah and back and then go down to Milwaukee and back. So again, we're covering a majority of that freight. So now we were able to take all the drivers and say, hey, now you're going to work 1 day on a weekend, every 5th weekend instead of every 3rd weekend. And in many cases, what we find is we have a lot of people, especially since the hours of service have been what they are versus the previous rule, which was 2 successive 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. periods off. Now that we have the normal hours of service rules, we have a lot of drivers who volunteer to work on weekends. So really that one day every 5th weekend, very rarely do the people that are on that schedule even have to work it. Because between the volunteers and the 4x4 fleet, we've taken that out of the equation. So what I'm getting at is these things have all led to a better work environment for our drivers, which leads to lower turnover, a happier driver, drivers who are more professional about their job and want to keep that job. So, and that's a better customer experience for me, for my customers. So it's leading to a win-win scenario all the way around. So, okay, let's move on to some of the perks we've done. Let's start at, normally I was doing this on a PowerPoint, so hopefully here's some of the things we've done since I've been here. 401k profit sharing. At the end of the day, what I realized early was the military and trucking have 2 things in common, and that's high divorce rates because of the lifestyle. So what I wanted to do is say, how can I do something for my drivers? Because if they are divorced, they're possibly paying child support and alimony. So I mean, things are tight off of a truck driver's pay, and for that matter, a lot of people's pay, if you're paying child support and alimony, so they don't feel like they can save for their retirement. So my outlook on that is, those are the type of employees that CTS wants. Those that take care of their family and are doing the right thing. And should they be punished for that? Or if I have someone working inside my office and they have a deadbeat dad, for instance. And so one of my billing girls may have a deadbeat dad and she's trying to raise the kid and not getting any help. Should she be put in a situation where she can't afford to save for retirement either because of that? Yet she's showing up to work every day here. So what I did 2 years ago is I changed our 401k. Typically, most companies operate a 401k in an environment where we'll donate, especially in the trucking business, 25 cents of every dollar up to 6% of your income is how the equation goes. And that's if you participate. So the only way they're going to match that money is if you yourself participate and contribute money to it. So if you're that dad that's paying child support or alimony, or if you're the wife that works here that's not being paid child support or alimony, at the end of the day, if you're not participating in the 401k under the old rules, and out of 90-some% of the trucking companies you go work for, guess what? You're getting no retirement money from them because you don't participate. So that was a huge point for me. And I think, well, it's not that I think I know, because I ask all the orientation class. Very few people in general, especially drivers, because of the retirement situation, very few of them understand how 401k works. And believe me, the bigger trucking companies know that, because they punch the money into the rate per mile, make sure every driver sees it, and invest very little in benefits. I've gone the opposite direction and believe if I can explain to you how 401k works and how it will benefit you and your family long term, you'd have no reason to leave me, right? So I gave you that scenario, right? So under that scenario, 25 cents on every dollar up to 6% of your income if you participate. If you're a truck driver and you made $50,000 a year, that means that a trucking company is giving you $750 towards your retirement. Well, if I asked 90% of the drivers in orientation in the past, I said, how much of that $750 do you think you take with you if you quit? And almost every one of them will say, well, all of it. Well, that's not the case, because every retirement plan, almost everyone I can think of in the trucking business, every trucking company I've worked for that I told you about earlier, has a investment schedule with their retirement plan, which means, and in most cases, it's a 5-year investment schedule. So if you get $750 and you quit after that first year of participating in 401k, you only take $150 with you, or 20%. If it's a 5-year investment schedule, 100% divided by 5 is 20%. You take 20% of 750, you take $150 with you. So let me give you this scenario quick, folks, and then we'll move on, right? Explain how the new one differs. Turnover in the trucking industry is high, right? So let's say you hired on in February here. almost all the trucking companies out there have 1 year waiting period before you can sign up for the retirement. So 1 year would be February of next year. Well, guess what? You can only sign up for the 401k in January and July. So now you have to wait till July till you can sign up and start contributing. So now you've worked for me essentially a year and a half before you can even start to contribute. Now, industry numbers tell me you're going to quit because there's 100% turnover in a year. But let's assume you've stayed with us, or any company for that matter. Now, you've been with me a year and a half. You start contributing in July of that year. Now, July to July of the following year. Now you've been with the company 2.5 years. You have contributed for a full year to your 401k. I give you $750. Now, July 1st, you quit and go to another company. If you were to do that over the period of 10 years, you would have worked for 4 different companies. And assuming that you participated in all their 401ks, you would have gotten from those combined 4 companies over a period of 10 years a whopping $600 towards your retirement. That's why we have 70-some-year-old drivers out there driving truck full-time today. And I saw it with my uncles and my dad. They couldn't afford to retire because trucking companies weren't taking care of them. Right? And believe me, the bigger trucking companies know this, right? Most trucking companies know that after 1 year, what happens? I have to give you generally a pay raise, or combination of that, and I have to start contributing to your 401k. So these ones that have schools and just keep putting guys from schools in, they don't care if you quit, because you actually, by quitting, save them money, whereas we look at it much different. So your new 401k here is a guaranteed 3% is what I did. So that same driver that's making $50,000 a year now gets 3% or $1,500 from us. So if you were getting $750 before, you're now getting $1,500. Well, guess what? We don't do investment schedule on it either. So if you quit me after 1 year, you take the full $1,500 with you. And oh, by the way, we only make you wait 6 months before you can sign up for the 401k versus a year, right? So that's significant. Now, mind you, that's double the amount of money you would have got before. And the more you make here, the more I contribute, obviously, because it's a guaranteed 3% of your income. But here's the most important part, and if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I'd be most proud of, is the fact that I'm doing it for every single employee, whether they participate in the 401k or not. Because at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are making this company run. And again, if you're doing the right thing by your family, or if you're on the receiving end of that, and your significant other, who now you've parted ways with, is not taking care of you, and you're trying to support your family on that single income and don't feel like you can afford to save for retirement, then darn it, I want to be the one that's continuing to give you money to make that the most feasible. So again, I don't know of another trucking company that's doing that plan. And we didn't have to, but it means that much to me because I saw it go down with my family. And hopefully you guys understand more about the 401k. And certainly once you hire on, if you want to talk more, understand more about it, feel free to stop by my office. But hopefully you value what we here at CTS are doing for our employees and for you. Average driver pay versus the industry. The average industry driver pay was roughly just a hair over $45,000 in 2016, from what I understand. Our average driver pay is going to come in at roughly $55,000. So what I would tell you is the old adage that says if you want to make more, you got to be willing to stay away from home longer. Or if you want to be home more, you got to be willing to make less. That doesn't come clean, because at the end of the day, you're basically working here Monday through Friday if you want. And as long as you're a good employee and do everything right on the pay for performance side, you should be able to make in the mid-50s. We had a record number of drivers make over $70,000 a year. We have owner-operators that are doing extremely well, better than they ever could have done at any of the long-haul trucking companies I work for. Because again, we have that many trailers. We do so much drop and hook. So it's about, we're turning the Twin Cities every day with anywhere from 8 to 12 trucks. You can't do better than the miles they're getting if you had a load from New Jersey to California in a day, because guess what? Our guys are going out 300 miles, drop it and hook and go over to a customer somewhere else in Minnesota, 25, 30 miles away, dropping and hooking and coming back and pulling into our yard with literally a half hour to an hour left in their day. And they're getting paid 625 to 630 miles. So again, I don't think you're going to find that many places. And it's one of the reasons why we've really grown that marketplace a lot. Minnesota, I think when I first came here, we were 8 to 12 loads a week we would do to Minnesota. We're doing 8 to 12 loads a day. And again, we're doing this kind of pay in basically a 5-day work week. And if you want to make more, if you want to be in that $70,000 to $75,000 range, volunteer to grab a Saturdays here and Saturday or Sunday here. Those guys are doing that. And what was it? 2 years ago, I think it was, we had that record number of guys making over $70,000 a year. And I think three of the five were slip seat guys working a 12-hour shift, but they were always saying, hey, give me a Saturday or Sunday work this weekend. And maybe one weekend a month they chose not to do that. It's there to be had. It's how much do you want it? So one of the other things we do is we do have a Packer suite. And that is for our employees that have a year or more with the company. It's not for our customers. It is for our employees. So if you're a driver, office person, you have a year or more with the company, we draw everyone's name out of a hat, and you get to take a significant other, a grandkid, a kid, whatever you want to do, a niece, nephew, a friend. We give you 2 tickets. You come up to the suite. The suite's decorated, a CTS decorated suite. And it's a way for us to spend more time with you outside of the workplace. And as I tell people, I'm not a Packer fan. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. But there's really only 2 cities I would ever think to do this and buy a suite where people would value it, and it would be Green Bay and Pittsburgh. So our drivers have loved it. We just renewed up. We asked our drivers, do you want us to renew up? They said yes. So we've really taken that game day experience and what you guys value so much and really are spending that time and found that a lot of our employees appreciate that. So we have the Packer Suite. Charitable functions, we are, and everyone I'm talking to right now, you may like hunting, you may like NASCAR, you may like sewing, I don't know what it is y'all like, but the one thing we do know that we generally 90-some% of us have in common is our love for kids, whether it's nieces, nephews, grandkids, our own kids, whatever. So from a charitable standpoint, Make-A-Wish is our primary foundation that we work with. I'm a firm believer you can't work at CTS strictly for a paycheck. You have to work at CTS, because you like it, you like the direction of the company, and you like how much a part of the community we are too. So we do Make-A-Wish, Taste of Green Bay, which is held at the KI Convention Center. We're part of their Thrivent Walkathon. We're platinum sponsors for both. And then we do other events throughout the year. But very important that we include our drivers and their families in those functions as well. And we do. We rent out 2 tables for the Taste of Green Bay, and then we randomly select drivers, and we get them home early that day to go home, get a shower, get with their wives or their husbands or whatever it may be, boyfriend, girlfriend, and then come back to the event dressed up. And it's really a neat event where we have 2 tables, and then you get to see what we're doing and what CTS is doing for a kid that's in need of something, because in many cases these are kids with very bad sicknesses or in some cases terminally ill. So we've been able to provide a pool for a young kid. We've been able to buy a small pop-up camper for a kid who loved camping, took a trip to Orlando for a kid. So just a neat thing, neat experience, and I think it's part of the overall happiness with your employers that you have to feel comfortable that, I want people interacting outside of work, and when they say, who do you work for, that person's just, I'm proud to say I work for CTS, whether it's in the office, the driver, myself. I'm always thrilled to say I work for CTS, because I think our reputation from a service standpoint and our employees and what we do for the community are huge. 2 cents of every loaded mile that our military wrap trucks and our police and fire trucks run go to those organizations, those local organizations here that take care of Wisconsin veterans, take care of the Green Bay Police Department and the Green Bay Fire Department. So again, we're going to continue to do that. I think it's very important that we do that, and hopefully you recognize the value in that as well. We started up 2 years ago. These are little things, but they're things that are disappearing. And I remember when I was a kid, but company picnics, no one does those anymore. No one has time for them, right? Is what what I perceive the problem is. Every year we do a company picnic in September over here at Bay Beach Amusement Park. All we do is, it's a pig roast with all the fixings and the sides. We invite you to come there. We provide you with free tickets for the rides. And just ask how many kids are you bringing. You can bring your grandkids, your kids, whatever. And really, there's no company agenda there. I just shake your hand. I'll have a meal with you. And then we just let you go into the park and have fun with your family. So we do that. We have a Christmas party, and yes, we do call it a Christmas party. We used to have a Christmas/safety banquet when I first came here, and I got to tell you, nothing screams the holidays more than a safety banquet combined with a Christmas party. But anyhow, that we said, first of all, if safety is a part of your culture, then safety needs to stand on its own. And so we do have our safety banquet now in February of every year, but the Christmas party is a Christmas party. Right, and that is the first Saturday of every December. And we changed the whole dynamic there and said, you know what? Instead of it just being an adult get-together, let's just make it like I remember when I was a kid, where you can bring your grandkids and your kids. Right, we still give out a ton of gifts to our drivers, more so than we've ever given out. But it's chaotic now. It's what Christmas feels like, because we now have a coloring decorating contest for the kids. We have a cookie decorating contest for the kids. We have a gentleman and a lady there making balloon animals. We have a candy station for the kids. We have a Santa that we bring indoors. We have family pictures that we actually do for families with a professional photographer that we're able to provide you as part of the event. So it is... I have yet to talk to one of our drivers that says, I like the way the old Christmas party was. Everyone, whether you bring kids or not, everyone enjoys that environment, and it's a great time. And so, back to old school type of stuff. And lastly, smoking cessation. We do participate in smoking cessation, not part of your health benefits plan. So we as a company are willing to pay for that. So that is $85 a week, and it's either an 8 or 10 week course, depending on how much of a smoker you are. I will tell you that we've had 9 of our drivers quit smoking because of this, right? And what I tell people, even if you smoke, take the course and complete it. Because if you do, you get money off of your premiums that you pay for your health benefits plan. Even if you don't quit smoking, the fact that you completed the course gets you the benefits. And the reason that is what we found is if you can strive to get to the completion of the course, more often than not, you're going to quit. And at the end of the day, I can do all this stuff from a retirement standpoint. I can do all this stuff from your average pay. But at the end of the day, when you go to retire, if you're not healthy, doesn't mean a hill of beans, right? And it's sort of the same thing with safety, right? At the end of the day, I can offer all these perks, the Packer Suite, all this other stuff. But if you ain't getting home every day safe, then it doesn't mean a hill of beans to your family that I provided all this stuff. It doesn't mean a hill of beans to you too. So, that's why we structured pay for performance the way we did, is we didn't have a lot of collaboration with our drivers to say, hey, save fuel. Drivers are like, well, it's not my truck. I'm not buying the fuel. So they would go through the gears, right? So, we lost that ability to do that. Got to be on time. Well, you know what? I'm getting the same pay no matter what anyhow. So, if I'm late, the only answer to that was termination, right? So really, by having drivers understand the business, understand what impacts the business, I think we had 40% when I first came here, 40-some% of our guys did pre-trip, post-trips. And drivers would be like, well, what's it matter? The shop sees the stuff. I'm sure it's taken care of. And someone drove the truck last night before me anyhow, so I'm sure it matters a ton, because if you have a major accident, A, you're going to be hurt, or B, the family's going to be hurt that's driving next to you, possibly hurt or killed, right? And if that happens, that's something that you never recover from. Whether you're hurt or the other family's hurt, mentally you will never recover from that. What you did to someone else if you hadn't done a pre-trip, post-trip. But on top of that, right, at the end of the day, if I have a profit-sharing 401k where I can actually give more than the guaranteed 3% based on how profitable we are, an accident that results in the death of someone is a game changer for a company our size, right? And it's a game changer for you and your family if you're that one that's hurt. So, everything we want to try and tie in to pay for performance, because guess what? If you do a pre-trip and catch the fact that the marker light's out and fix it at my shop here, benefits and everything, average hourly for my shop to do something like that would be $38 for an hour, right? And the cost of the market light. If you don't catch that till you're down around Milwaukee somewhere, well, guess what? I have to call a road service out. They charge me over $100 an hour, and they charge me a 4-hour minimum for doing it. Plus, they mark up the parts by 50% or more. And you say, well, it doesn't affect my pay at all. Well, it does now and pay for performance. But at the end of the day, guys and gals, the more profitable I am, the more I get to put into perks for you guys, which hopefully you see that I've done, the more I get to put into a profit sharing plan, which does even more than 3% for your retirement. So again, everything drives towards, if I can have drivers have more skin in the game and understand how what they do impacts the profitability of this business, that's more money I can put into drivers and then be able to put into perks. So again, help us out here. Do the right thing. Be safe. All those things are very important. It's why we don't want smoking in the trucks, because guess what? And a lot of people say, well, that seems, if you were out 2 weeks at a time, I wouldn't implement a rule like that, right? Because I want you to be comfortable in the truck. At the end of the day, you're home every day, right? So you say, well, what's the value in that? Well, when I go to sell a truck, if I sell a truck that's been smoked in for 6 years versus one that hasn't, which one do you think is worth more in the market? Because I possibly cannot, it's impossible to clean out the smoke smell in a truck after 6 years of smoking in it. So help us out, adhere to that. Hopefully you quit smoking, but everything you see tied to pay for performance. Today we have over 90% compliance on pre-trip, post-trip, and that's because it's tied into pay for performance. So again, approach your work every day with the company's interest in mind, because at the end of the day, the company's interest is your interest. It's direct reflect, and it goes right into what you're going to see. So I'll wrap this up by saying, again, I appreciate you choosing CTS. The bullet items I will hit on: professionalism, keep it professional, use your hierarchy, go through your fleet manager. If you're not happy there, go to Aaron Cunningham, our Director of Operations. If you're not happy there, my door is always open. Taking care of the equipment, right? Treat the equipment well. Don't beat it up, right? Don't smoke in it. Let's take care of the equipment and get it back. The more I can save in that, the more value I get on resale. That's all bottom line stuff. Safety, take care of yourself and everyone around you. I tell everyone, do your job as if that's your wife, your daughter, your husband, your son that's driving next to you, right? Pre-trips, post-trips. Don't look away at the cell phone. You should never have the cell phone in the truck. It drives me nuts that it's there because it's tempting. But please, you cannot, that's one thing that we cannot afford to have. It's a proven fact, right, that it happens. We're getting it on the cameras that we see today. And, luckily I'm able to coach people today when we see it. And then if it happens a second time, then we're having issues. But please, these cameras were meant to A, protect the company from having a serious accident, and B, to protect you. The thing that we know is that 81% of fatality accidents with trucks that take place are not the driver's fault. Yet we are literally, a company my size is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year settling stuff out of court because we don't want it to go to a jury. Even though we feel we're in the right, a jury is going to tend to side with the person who's driving a small vehicle versus a trucking company. So we've already seen it in the short time we've had these cameras that we've saved the driver's butt and we've saved our butt by able to show them a video that says, the story's not quite as your client has explained it. Look at the video, right? So understand why we're doing it. Again, do the right thing. Stay off your cell phones. Be safe out there. And let's get you home every day. Open door policy, that goes without saying. We have an open door policy. I do this. I keep my office over here by the window so I can interact and talk with my drivers and talk with our employees. So very open door policy. We want to be better. We've implemented a lot of things at the request of drivers that have made us a better company. So we actually do act on stuff that drivers tell us about. We meet semi-annually with you guys at the Mark down in De Pere is where we generally have those. But it's to give a company update and get feedback from you guys. 2-hour session. We provide breakfast and everything. But that's, we want that feedback day in and day out where we can get better. We're going to provide you that feedback quarterly where we sit down with you and tell you, hey, here's where you're meeting expectations, here's where you're not. maybe you're blowing it out of the water in every location. But we want to have that interaction back and forth so that we can be better as a company and you can be a better employee and a happier employee. Lastly, we do have a driver committee as well that's made up of your peers. So if you're not comfortable for any reason or do have some questions, there's the ability to go through that driver committee too to get answers. So at the end of the day, folks, that's my story. That's the CTS story. I'm glad you chose CTS. You know, we were part of as I mentioned, I was part of a private equity firm that bought the company in 2012. We were repurchased a year later by a company by the name of WSI, which has been huge for us. It's really what led to your great medical plan that you have here, unlike any other in the trucking business I'm aware of. So that collaboration with WSI, they are a warehousing manufacturing company, and they have been a huge partner for us, and one that gives me solace at night to know that, you know what, some of these other companies that are made up of brokerage, warehousing, third party, you know, we now, before WSI was in the picture, it made me very nervous that one of those companies could eventually come along one day and say, hey, we'll do all this for you, customer, but we want the trucking, and I wouldn't have been able to fend them off. With WSI today, WSI owns 20 million square feet of warehouse space. They do 3PL, they have a brokerage, they can manage bids for customers, so they can do everything that had me concerned before that protects us in our environment. So if you want to know more about them, look at www.wsionline.com. That will tell you more about the company and what they do. So again, thank you for choosing CTS. I hope this wasn't long-winded. But there's a lot I'm proud of, a lot I want to tell you guys, and I want to see you be, guys and gals, and I want to see you be successful here at CTS. So I often tell people, I've worked at a lot of trucking companies, if you can't make it here, I'm convinced you can't make it in the trucking business, because we have sleeper units if you want to do that, but we still keep you close, can get you the miles of that. If you live too far away, and you can't commute, you don't want to commute home every day, we got sleepers for you. We got day cabs. We run 4x4s. We run slip seats. We have local jobs. We have spotting jobs. I mean, and we're getting you home all the time. And you're making above industry average pay, and you're getting great medical benefits, and you're getting a 401k like no other trucking company. So again, the only reason you should not be able to make it here would be if, from a performance standpoint, you can't make the accommodations to understand how to work in a get home daily environment versus that. But I feel like we have so many alternatives, so if the one job that you're taking today doesn't fit what you wanted from an expectation standpoint, talk to us. Let's try other ones, right? So if you come in as a road board driver and you say, hey, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be, can I try slip seat? We'll do that. You know what? I think maybe I'd like to do 404. We'll do that, right? We'll keep bouncing you around until we find a fit. But the only reason I could see that you wouldn't be successful here would be if you're the type of guy or gal that says, hey, I want to be away from home 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I don't want to see my house 2 or 3 weeks at a time. That's generally where we'll not be successful for people that have that expectation. But again, I don't think you're coming here under that expectation to get that. So hopefully everything I tell you, if everything I told you today is not how it's delivered to you when you're out there working, you need to come see me, because again, I put my name on the dotted line. I'm willing to back up what I say. And I want you to be successful, because the more successful you are, the more successful we are. So again, thank you very much for choosing CTS, and good luck out there, and I wish you well in your career here. Thank you.